Hi there, I'm Phil Broadhead, Deputy Leader of BCP Council. You're joining us for this mini-series of podcasts where we delve into some of the incredible industries and businesses we've got across the BCP region, find out how they're doing, how they've seen through the pandemic, and crucially, how they've used some of the support that we've given as a council to take their businesses to the next level. Today, I'm talking to Simon from REIDsteel. REIDsteel being a huge institution based right in the heart of Christchurch, have been going for over 100 years. We'll be talking about the support that the council has given them, their journey through the pandemic, and what the next steps are for this amazing local industry. Thanks for joining. Brilliant. Well, Simon, thanks for coming and joining us and having a bit of a conversation today. I suppose the first step is tell us a bit about yourself and about REIDsteel, how long it's been going, and it's quite an institution over in Christchurch.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm the finance director at REIDsteel. I've been with the company for about 3 years. The company itself has been going for 102 years now.
God, wow, is that long?
Founded in 1919, so 103 years.
Gosh, wow.
And been in Christchurch since the late 50s on the current site. So we are a structural steel engineer.
Yep.
We design, fabricate, install and export a huge range of steel structures, bridges to Nepal, aircraft hangars outside London, airport terminals to Africa, lots of mining buildings into African gold mining areas.
Wow.
Hurricane-resistant buildings into the Caribbean, municipal buildings all over. It's a really broad range of projects that we support.
Fantastic. And I suppose that doesn't seem that there's that many British-based steel companies anymore working in this. So are you pretty unique, or is this still a an environment where others are there?
Yes and no. So there is a big British steel industry.
Yeah.
Most industrial buildings, most commercial buildings are steel framed.
Yeah.
In this country at least, and it's at the bottom end of the market. It's quite easy to get into. So at the bottom end of the market, there's very low barriers to entry.
Yeah.
If you've got a bit of space and a welding torch and the right qualifications, you can just crack on.
Yeah.
Where we sort of separate ourselves, I suppose, when we look at our USPs, is we're able to offer the full envelope to a building. So not just the frame, but also cladding and glazing. And
okay. This is the whole package.
So, So someone else does the groundworks, we put the building in it, and then you let the other trades in to put in machinery and equipment and decoration and things. So that makes us fairly unique. And the other thing, I think that there were two other things that really separate us. First one is export.
Yeah.
So over the years, we probably export about 55-60% of our total business.
That much? Wow.
Yeah, and COVID hit really hard on that part of the business. That's really hurt us. And we've also got some, as I describe ourselves as a structural engineer. We've got some bits of unique intellectual property as well, which give us particular strengths in the aircraft hangar market, which is incredibly resilient.
Yeah. That's an interesting part, because I mean, you mentioned obviously the pandemic, kind of in passing just then, but that has, I mean, it's impacted lots of industries in different ways. But tell me a little bit about what impact it had on REIDsteel. I mean, your company's been going over 100 years. You've been up and down and through the wars, quite literally. Yeah. But this was different, wasn't it? Impacted in different ways. What was it like for you guys?
Day one, we all, Boris said go home, so we were told.
Yeah, gosh.
But you can't manufacture things from your sitting room.
Funny that, isn't it? Yeah. Zoom can do some things, but probably not.
Yeah,
put steel things together. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So we quickly worked out how we could continue to manufacture safely, and how we continue to install buildings safely, because we had to carry on doing those. We went into the pandemic with a big order book, and customers were relying on us to deliver things. We had to get it done.
Yeah.
And actually, our financial year ends March, and our year ended March 21, which is pandemic year.
Yeah,
was a record for us.
Get out, seriously.
Yeah, it really was. It was a really good year because we walked into it with enormous backlog.
Okay.
So what didn't happen during that year was the rebuild of the backlog.
Yeah.
So imagine we're exporting more than half of our business. Planes are grounded.
That's a knock-on effect that comes down.
We thought we were hit.
Yeah.
The developing nations, the African nations that we sell into, hit so much worse.
Seriously.
So things just kind of ground to a halt on that half of the business. And equally for some of our UK projects, some of the planning on those slowed down as well. So we found ourselves at the end of 2021 sort of cheering and patting ourselves on the back for the amount that we'd achieved during the year, but also with a bit of an eye to the future and thinking,
hang on, what
we're going
comes
to have
next?
to really tighten our belts here.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's really, and I think it's a story that people don't talk about, the impact of other nations apart from the usual Western nation suspects, I suppose.
Yeah.
But if you're actually dealing with some, others, it's surprising that they were hit so bad as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all the news, all the press is about our trading relationships as a nation with Europe. And with the US.
Yes, absolutely.
We don't really trade with them at all. We have small amounts of purchases in from Europe. We're very proud to be British and very proud to support British industry. So we buy our raw materials from, by and large, from UK suppliers.
Yeah.
And then we're exporting outside of Europe because we found with the way the EU was set up that it was just impossible for us to trade into Europe.
Interesting. And of course, there are lots of other opportunities out there as well. So.
It's a huge world. We've exported to 140 countries in the world. And there are more to go.
Yeah, there's always new opportunities, aren't there? So looking back to that time, because you had that backlog, I suppose you were able to broadly survive through that really difficult period.
Yeah.
But then the worry then was about what comes next.
Yeah.
I mean, as a council, we had a lot of different ways that we're trying to support businesses through things like Bounce Back Challenge, but also we had a targeted support where we looked at particular parts of our economy that were really important to BCP that we knew needed some extra support. And so that's where we got involved, I believe, in the funding for you guys as well.
Yeah,
so tell me a little bit about what impact that made, the support that we gave during that time.
Sure. So at this stage, I was the finance director. I look at the bank balance every day anyway.
Yeah.
But I was projecting out on a daily basis over the next 6-9 months to see what we were going to have in the tank and how long we could last. And on the basis of that, back solving into sales and saying, look, guys, you have got to start delivering. And if you don't deliver, and we set some triggers.
Yeah.
We said, if the order intake hasn't recovered to that level by that date, this is the consequence.
Yeah.
And we were getting very close to one of those dates.
Really? Yeah.
When the ERG was announced, when you approached us. And one of the things, and what it did for us was it allowed us to maintain a strength of our sales force and our design team. So they're the two critical business development.
They create the business of tomorrow, don't they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
To get us through that gap, and actually over the couple of months period that the grant supported the sales team for, was the time it needed to get that order intake in and to start us up and running again. So,
and I'm guessing, looking, sat here today with hopefully the pandemic behind us, albeit with new challenges ahead and inflationary environment, cost of living, that it worked. You got through that, and you got that new order book coming through for the future. So it helped you to bridge that gap. Yeah,
that's right. So we saw the orders start to recover. We've now just completed our 4th consecutive quarter of over target order intake.
Brilliant.
Takes a while for the orders to get themselves through the business. So the business business is still rippling a little bit, but by and large back and strong. We had to turn to our bank for a bit of support for a while, so we ran an overdraft for a period of time. We're now back out of that again, so that's good.
That's great.
Keeping the facility in place just in case, but it doesn't look like we need it again. And so the business is back in rude health. The inflationary environment sort of hits as a double whammy, actually, because...
so what is that doing for you? Because, I mean, you would have thought it would be directly impacting in a way that's probably more than some sectors.
So the world is behaving like inflation's fairly recent. Yeah, we've been struggling with inflation for, I'd say, a good 18 months.
Yeah. Okay.
So again, knock-on impacts of the pandemic, there was less iron ore being dug out of the ground.
Yeah.
And the whole supply chain had slowed right down.
Okay.
And you can't turn a global supply chain on overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was we were suddenly bouncing around saying, demand, demand, demand. And they say, oh, well, that's nice. There's not a lot of steel about. And the price of it is up and up and up. So
creeping up.
At the peak, our steel price was almost 3 times what it was sort of mid-pandemic.
Really?
Yeah,
3 times. And that's your main core material.
That's our main raw material. And it's moving more or less unpredictably. Mm-hmm. We get letters from the main suppliers saying you've got 2 weeks to get those orders in. The price is up.
Wow.
And that was also damaging our ability to book orders, because it's a fairly long negotiation to get all the dots over the I's and the crosses over the T's in a construction contract. And you kind of get to the point and say, right, we're ready to sign. Yeah, we're ready to sign, but need to talk about price. And you can see the developer start to go, but I've got my whole budget here. I've negotiated my funding facility.
Yeah. So this environment is not since Ukraine environment for you. This is something you've been grappling with.
We've been having with it since before that
period of time.
But Ukraine has emphasized it because the Ukrainian steel mills used to produce a huge proportion of European steel. They weren't sending it here; they were sending it to Turkey. The Turkish mills were processing it and then selling it on to other places.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And then when the Turks could no longer get their raw steel from the Ukraine, they had to get it off the rest of the global market, the rest of the European market, and you've got a big gap there trying to fill. Couple of the fact that we've all decided that we don't really like using Russian gas anymore, so we'll pump the power costs up. We were in double whammy. There was a point in time where we were getting messages from our customers, from our suppliers, that they were going to start rationing quantities.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So I suppose if you had to be positive, one of the benefits of having to deal with that environment over a protracted period means that it's become a bit more business as usual. For the business. So what's your kind of outlook in the medium term? Are you still really worried about that situation getting worse, or is it now kind of built into the pattern of how you do things?
So that global supply chain effect has more or less stabilized.
Yeah,
I think. So we've seen the raw materials not move around that much over the last, say, 6 months.
Yeah.
And in some cases, we started to see a softening in the pricing of the raw material. But just as we're starting to pick ourselves up from that, but that's fairly easy as well from a business management perspective. Mm-hmm. Direct materials go directly into the pricing calculation. They're passed.
It's got to come out the other end.
Absolutely. What we're seeing now, though, is indirect cost inflation.
Okay. And
the indirect cost inflation needs a little bit more thought because we live in a price competitive world. Everyone's not wanting to pay too much for something. Mm-hmm. So you've got to be quite careful about what you do with your overhead rates. Sorry to talk a bit of techie.
No. It's important.
Think about how much you charge each job to cover the overheads you're incurring. So that's, but I think
it's not as linear as the other parts of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. But we'll get through with that. And of course, the business energy relief scheme that's going on at the moment is helping to defer that issue a bit, because that was going to give us a 400% increase in our power costs.
It's just nuts, isn't it? It really is.
Which adds about 20% to the cost of my factory.
Wow. That's
the significant bit of it.
Yeah, God. So it's really interesting. I mean, it's a weathered the pandemic storm. Obviously, there's always a new storm on the horizon, isn't it? But by the sounds of it, got a lot of the mechanisms in place to be able to see that through. Which is really positive as a local industry that's clearly so influential and powerful and valued in the BCP community. But you've got big plans as well. And what's the future looking like for REIDsteel?
So we'll do short term and medium term, shall we?
Go for it.
So short term. The UK economy is not looking too rosy for next year, but we've got our export markets.
Yes,
and this is really where we have how we've got through the last 100 years. So by choosing your marketplaces,
diversifying.
And so when we look at our revenue funnel, our sales funnel for the next 12 months or so, that's looking pretty robust, but it's not got an awful lot of UK business in it. There are some selected projects in there where the money's good. So the great thing about being makers of buildings is the stuff that goes in the buildings is usually worth an awful lot more than the building itself.
Yeah.
And rich people still need somewhere to park their pet aeroplanes.
It's true. I have 3. Yeah,
it's a problem for you, isn't it? Absolutely. So there's that. And then in the kind of medium term, we've been in Christchurch since the late 50s. Some of the buildings we're using in the factory were the ones we moved into when we first moved there.
I love that. We don't build things like that anymore, do we?
Exactly. So they're pretty. So it's a good advert because there are buildings.
There you are. There you go.
And they still work, but the layout's inefficient. The buildings themselves, from an environmental perspective, they're not the best insulated. And so we're looking to build ourselves a new factory.
Yeah.
We've got planning for a site adjacent to ours to do that. We were full steam ahead until we hit this little pandemic bump. And so currently we're looking at how we can make that happen.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, what can we do to help ourselves without that big investment? To be able to
whilst still play. It's great that you've got not only the option but the aspiration to do so. Obviously, the jigsaw pieces have to fall into place, but and a commitment to the area as well, which is what we really like to see.
That's key, and there's not a lot of industrial land available.
No, there's not.
Exactly. And even we did have a site lined up on the big development area, and even there, land which is earmarked for industrial development. It was a nightmare getting planning.
It's still.
In fact, we gave up on the planning in the end on that one.
Yeah.
Other things meant that the site became unviable. But
in the end, it's probably all worked out well that you can kind of try and stay and expand where you currently are. And probably from a business continuity point of view, like you say, a bit of a hiccup, pandemic comes along, we'll just rephase and look differently. Whereas I suppose if you are investing in a whole new site, that makes it a bit more tricky.
Yeah, I think if we had just invested in March 2020, it would have potentially made would
have been a bit more tricky, wouldn't it?
A bit more awkward.
Yeah,
absolutely. But no, the future's bright. It's a good opportunity. Safeguard's over 100 jobs in the centre of Christchurch. And of course, jobs in the centre of Christchurch keep the high street alive.
They do, yeah. It all joins together, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, look, it's been great talking to you, and hopefully, our successors are sat here in another 100 years' time talking about the success of REIDsteel in the future. But thanks for the chat, and good luck in all your short and medium term plans.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you want to hear a little bit more about some of the other journeys that the businesses have been on as we help them through the pandemic, check out some of the other episodes in this mini-series. And also a big urge to all businesses, charities and organisations in the BCP region. Our economic development team at the council are here to support you, both through today and tomorrow, including some of the other grant funding that may be available in the future. So make sure you sign up to our BCP business newsletter, and hopefully we can help you in the future. Thanks for joining us.